Welcome back. Today we're going to be starting Unit 12, talking about volume of rectangular prisms and cylinders. So looking down below, we've got two shapes. We've got a rectangular prism and a cylinder. Let's talk about how we calculate their volume. So for a rectangular prism, the volume of a rectangular prism is computed by multiplying the area of the base, that's the length times the width, by the height of the prism. For a cylinder, the volume of the cylinder is computed by multiplying the area of the base, pi r squared, by the height of the cylinder. So notice that every time that we're finding volume, we're going to first find the area of the base, no matter what shape it is. So whether it's a rectangular shape or whether it's a circular shape, we're going to find the area first and then multiply that by the height. So let's try that now here with our first shape, our rectangular prism. We're going to start by finding the area of the base. And since our shape is a rectangle, we know that our area formula for rectangle is length times width. So the length of our shape is going to be 4. The width of our shape is going to be 3. So we're going to plug those in or substitute them. So 4 times 3 is going to give us 12. So that's the area of our base. Now to take the volume we just talked about, we're going to multiply that times the height. So our height in this case is 5. So we're going to do 12 times 5. And that's going to give us the answer of 60. So that's going to be our volume. However, this is a word problem, so we need some word answers. So our measurement is going to be 60 centimeters cubed. We're talking about 3 dimensions, so we know that we need to label our answer with to the 3rd power. Now let's try the same trick with our cylinder. Again, we're going to start by finding the area of the base. So in this case, we've got a circular shape. So we need our area formula for circle. So our area formula for circle is pi r squared, which it tells us on both our formula sheet and right here in our notes. So I know that our area formula is pi r squared. For all intents and purposes, when we're talking about pi, when we're talking about solving them for our problems, we're going to use the calculation 3.14. Sure, your calculator has a pi button, and yes, we know that pi goes on and on forever without stopping. However, we needed to have one common number to use that we could all agree on for our answers when it comes to standardized tests or tests that we're going to be giving in class. So in order to do that, we're going to choose to use 3.14. Now we need to figure out what our radius is, which is going to be half of our circle. So in that case, it's going to be 3, and then we're going to be squaring it. So now we need to follow our order of operations, which means we need to use our exponent first. So 3 squared, or 3 times 3, is 9. So we're going to end up with 3.14 times 9. And when we do that, we're going to have to use our calculator because we've got some decimals there. And when we do that, 3.14 times 9 is 28.26. So that's our area, 28.26. So now that we have our area, we need to multiply that times our height, just like we did last time, base times height. So our height here is going to be 4. So we're going to take our 28.26 and we're going to multiply that times 4 because that is our height. So 28.26 times 4 is going to give me 113.04. Now again, I need to label this, but they didn't tell us whether it's inches, feet, centimeters. We don't know. So we're going to write the word units whenever they don't tell us what our measurement should be. So you can write the word units or you can use the letter U. And in this case, again, we're going to have to the 3rd power because again, we're going to be talking about 3 dimensions. Let's take a look at some more examples and applications. So on this page here, we've got a few things to figure out. We've got to circle some applications of volumes. We've got some volume formulas there, the official formulas that we can use to figure this out. And then we have a few examples down there at the bottom that we can use those formulas on. So let's start by talking about circling applications of volume. So again, we're trying to figure out when are we going to use the volume formula. And remember, volume is going to be whenever that we're going to be filling something up inside. So for example, filling a can with soup. That would be finding the volume of the soup can because we're going to be putting something inside. However, painting a box is not going to be volume because that's going to be around the outside. So that is not the same as volume. That's covering around the outside. That's something called surface area, which we're going to talk about shortly. However, it is not volume. Wrapping a present, again, not going to be an application of volume because again, that's going to be around the outside. Putting ice cream in a cone, however, that is going to be volume because we're going to be filling up that ice cream cone, so that is going to count as volume. Painting a room, however, will not count as volume because we're going to be covering the walls in the room. We're not going to be filling the room with paint. That would just be insane. So we're not going to be doing that. So that is not volume. Filling the pool with water, yep, we're filling it up. So that counts as volume. Pouring water in a glass, again, filling it up. So that counts as volume. Covering a box with paper, however, not so much because that will be around the outside. Down there at the bottom, we've got a few examples that we can use those formulas for that we have on the upper right-hand side, talking about the cylinder volume formula and the rectangular prism volume formula. However, if you don't have your formula, you can always find the area of the base and multiply it by the height. That applies to any shape that you want to find volume to. So any shape, whether it's cylinder, rectangular prism, hexagonal prism, whatever shape that you have in front of you, if you can find the area of the base, you can multiply that times the height and find the volume. So you don't always have to have the formulas, but they do come in handy. So let's take a look at example A, where it says that Hassan is filling this container of frozen yogurt. How many cubic inches of frozen yogurt does it hold? So we can see that it is a cylinder. So we're going to go up there and grab our cylinder formula. So our volume is going to equal pi r squared, just like it did on the front, times our height. So again, the area of the base is this part of our formula with our pi r squared, and then our height is obviously going to be the h. So now we're going to be plugging things in. So our radius here is going to be tough because they just gave us the diameter. So the diameter goes all the way across, and we need the radius, which is only going to go halfway across. So we need to take our 11 there and divide by 2 to figure out our radius. And when we do that, 11 divided by 2, we get 5.5. So that's going to be our radius. We know that our pi is going to stand for 3.14, as it always is. Our radius we just figured out is 5.5 squared, and our height on the right-hand side of our cylinder is going to be 4. Now we need to apply the order of operations. So to do that, we're going to take our 5.5 and we're going to square it first because, again, we have to do our exponents before we do anything else. So we've got our 3.14. When we take our 5.5 squared, we end up getting 30.25. And then we're going to multiply that all times 4. So now we can just type this straight in our calculator. 3.14 times our 30.25 times our 4. And when we do that, we should get the final answer of being V equals, or volume equals, 379.94. And again, we need to label our answer. And we're going to be labeling it in inches this time. And since, again, we're talking about volume, we're talking about 3 dimensions, we're going to have our cubed. So that's the answer to our first problem. Now let's move over to example B, where Marcos is filling his pool to get ready for the summer. The pool is the shape of a rectangular prism, is 8 feet deep, 15 feet wide, 13 feet long. What is the volume of the pool? So again, we need our rectangular prism formula, since we know that it's telling us that it's a rectangular prism shape. So that formula is going to be V equals length times width times height. So all we're going to do is plug in the numbers that we have. Again, it doesn't really matter what order you plug them in because we're going to be multiplying them. And as we talked about with our properties, the order of multiplication does not matter. But we're going to put it in as we see it. So our length is going to be 13 feet long. Our width says that it's going to be 15 feet wide. And our depth is going to be 8 feet, or our height. So now we're going to just multiply all those numbers together. So 13 times 15 times 8. And our answer is going to be 1,560. But again, we're going to need to label it. And since our problem is talking about feet, we know that we're going to have feet and cubed. Our final example there is talking about Campbell's design for a new soup can. How much will the soup can hold? So since we know that it's talking about how much we hold, we're talking about volume. So again, we're going to need our volume formula, which is volume equals pi r squared times h. We know our volume is going to be pi, or we know our pi is 3.14. We know our radius, they gave it to us immediately. We didn't have to do any extra to get a squared. And our height along the right-hand side here is going to be 4.4. Now that we have those numbers, remember that we have to do our exponents first. So we have to do our 2.5 squared because we need to follow the order of operations. So when we do that, we're going to get our 3.14 times our radius squared, which is going to be 6.25, times our height, which is going to be 4.4. So now that we've got all of our numbers, we can just multiply them straight across. So 3.14 times 6.25 times 4.4 is going to give us our answer of 86.35. And again, we need to then mark this as inches cubed because we're talking about volume. That brings us to the end of this video. If you like this video, go ahead and throw us a thumbs up. If you love this video, go ahead and throw us a sub, and we will catch you in the next one.